So we need to speed things up a little bit now. So we're going to run through about securing the scene of an event and the particular aspects of why we need to actually do that as part of this process. So securing the incident scene and making it safe is really important, that we actually able to capture all the information that we need in there without actually disturbing it as little evidence, but we can disturb information to actually preserve life. So you've got to find that balance in how we actually deal with things. The second thing is that we really need to deal with the casualties, who's on the scene. So a while ago, we did the emergency management processes. Do you remember who's the first person who should be in control of the scene when we actually have an incident of that magnitude at all? Can we remember what his title was? The emergency controller, response controller. Yeah. So little acronyms that you need to have in your minds, or go back to the workbooks and visit them. So the emergency response controller, he'll start to deal with casualties. He'll start to look at whether we need first aid, whether it can be measured, whether we need to send people to hospital, who's actually going with them to hospital. And remember, all this is going through your mind in seconds. We go back to that rail crane incident. So who do we escalate the reporting procedure to? So is it the line manager? Is it the subcontractor's manager, because he's going to be the one going to hospital? How do we actually preserve the scene? And is there potentially any secondary scenes that we actually need information from, that people can't go and remove information? So it may be the hazard log, it may be the risk register, which is on the file back at the office. It may be the maintenance records, which are held at the subcontractor's store. So we need to be able to make sure that all of these are going to be stored and not deleted or destroyed as part of that. So you've actually got to make your list then in your mind, this dynamic risk assessment of what information you've got looking at and what information you're going to need to gain access to as part of your investigation. We then need to look at identifying key witnesses and potentially other people. So when I looked at the last slide and we talk about designers and manufacturers and other people like that, they've never visited our site. We're not even aware of them. But we've actually got to still identify them, that we may need to go and speak to them further down the track as we actually go through it. We've discussed the part of carrying out the dynamic risk assessment. You don't need to put yourself at risk. We don't need to hurt anybody else as part of investigating in this process. And then make sure that that dynamic risk assessment is actually briefed out to all parties. So as I said, we had a key crew of about 8 people who were actually managing our own little groups and making sure that information was actually passed out. And sometimes in the timescales as well of things that are actually going to happen. And when you go into the scene, I've seen it so many times, is that people walk straight up to the actual location and start taking photographs or recordings. You should always start off from as far back as you can and walk around the incident scene first, recording all the information you can actually get, and then work your way in a little bit at a time, because what you'll see sometimes from one angle may be a different perspective when you actually see it from a different angle. So you need to be able to have that dexterity to be able to move all around and record the scene from different locations.